Hi everybody, it's Christina. Welcome back to another Friday Reads. This week I'm filming on my phone because I fully admit, as much as I want to keep these really simple to create and upload, the last one filmed on my laptop was horrendous. So we're trying this. It's a work from home Friday, so I'm keeping it simple during my lunch break here. But I finished 2 books this week, so I will share a wrap up of those. And then I have a little bit of a library haul from books I picked up at the library last weekend. So first up, I finished The Ministry of Time by Kellyanne Bradley. This is what I was currently reading at the end of my last video. This is a sci-fi novel that's set in a near future. The British government has discovered a time travel door, and so they need to test it out, and they kidnap a handful of people from centuries past, take them to the 21st century to see how they assimilate both in their physical health and also with society. Our protagonist is an unnamed narrator. She's a young woman who works for the government as a bridge. She is essentially a glorified babysitter for one of the expats, as they're called. Her expat is Commander Graham Gore. He was a naval officer for a failed Arctic expedition, and he's actually a real person from history, which I thought was really cool. Overall, this book is a 3-star read for me. I think the plotline is very creative. I think the author has a lot of great ideas. Unfortunately, though, this book suffers from something that I find a lot of debut novels do, for me at least, and that's putting too much into one book. So this book has the sci-fi element, it has the time travel, of course, it has espionage, it has historical fiction, it has a romance plot, it discusses the role of the government and whether it's corrupt or not, and it also discusses race and diversity because our protagonist is half British and half Cambodian, just like our author. So these are a lot of different things to pack into one book, and I wish the author was a bit more focused, but otherwise I think she has a lot of great ideas, so I look forward to seeing what she does next. The next book that I read is Pet by Catherine Chidgey. I heard about this from Mercedes over at Mercy's Bookish Musings. This is a thriller novel. It is set in New Zealand. When the book begins, our main character, Justine, is visiting her father in the nursing home, and his new nurse looks eerily familiar to a teacher she had as a child, but she knows it can't be that teacher because the age is simply wrong. We then flash back to we start in 2014. We flash back to 1984 when Justine is 12 years old. She's attending a private Catholic school, and her teacher is a young woman named Mrs. Price. She's beautiful and blonde, and she drives an American Corvette, and all of the children just adore her and they want to be her teacher's pet. From there, the story continues. It gets really creepy, and I won't say much more on the plot because this is a super fast read. I read it in 2 days. The writing, while easy to read and very approachable, is not too simple or basic. So I think the author does a great job at keeping the book enticing without watering it down. There were a couple of issues for me. One is very minor. There is a time error. I'm looking down at the book, by the way. If you see me looking down, maybe I should just continue to hold it up. Let me know. But there is a time error. The author mentions Tamagotchis in the 1984 chapter, and that immediately struck me as weird because I remember those being really popular when I was in 2nd grade in 1998. So I did look it up on Wikipedia, and Tamagotchis came out in 1991. So that is an error. Also, I don't like it when mystery thriller novels have to rely on the main character's memory loss in order for the mystery to work. This is not a spoiler. You're told right from the beginning of the book that Justine does suffer from seizures, and because of that, whenever she has a seizure, she says she loses her memory from around that time. And the plot of the thriller does rely on that memory loss, which is a little weak to me. I find that if you have to have your main character lose their memory in order for your mystery to work, that means your writing could do a bit better. So because of that, I gave this book 3.5 stars. Really, really enjoyed it. Like I said, it was super fast paced. This book is one of the most terrifying books I've ever read, and that's because our villain is somebody you probably know in your real life. Maybe not to this extent, but I could think of 2 people that I have met and interacted with in my real life that reminded me of the villain, which is super creepy. I highly recommend this if you're looking for a thriller that starts out really light and bright and turns dark and sinister over the course of the novel. Now let's jump into the library haul and the book that I'm currently reading, which is Somewhere Beyond the Sea by T.J. Klune. This is the sequel to The House in the Cerulean Sea, which I read a few years ago now and really enjoyed. This one I'm struggling with a little bit. I'm just over 100 pages in and I'm not loving it. It's nice to be back with the characters, but the author is making some choices that I don't really agree with in terms of his writing style. So I will report back to you once I finish this, hopefully in my next video, to let you know my thoughts on that one. I also picked up How I Became a Famous Novelist by Steve Hely. I'm just covering up the local library on there. I heard about this from Steve Donahue's YouTube channel recently, and supposedly this is a fictional memoir. So it is about a gentleman who makes efforts on purpose to become a famous novelist, even though he's not a writer, and he's now writing down to tell you the story of how that worked out for him. I'm paraphrasing because I'm not 100% sure, but when Steve described it, it sounded super interesting, and whenever Steve recommends a fiction book, I tend to pick it up lately because I trust his judgment. The next 2 books are both books that focus on cryonics. Last week I mentioned that when Lauren from Lauren and the Books was talking about the Ministry of Time, when the words came out of her mouth and went into my ears, I thought she was describing a fiction book about cryonics, but I was 100% incorrect. But then I decided I did want to read some fiction on that topic, so I did a little searching both on Google and Reddit, and then I turned to my library website and just typed in cryonics and saw what came up, and I found 2 books that I think are promising. The first one is Frankissstein by Jeanette Winterson, so almost Frankissstein, but a little bit different. I've never read anything by this author before, but she's one that I hear about a lot on BookTube, so I'm interested to give this a try. And then this next behemoth is Fall by Neal Stephenson. I've also never read a Neal Stephenson book before. I'm a little nervous because this is almost 900 pages, so I'm hoping I can finish this before I need to return it to the library. But both of these books have to do with cryonics. I'm interested to read both of these and then report back and maybe give a recommendation, or maybe neither of them will be for me. We'll see what happens. But that's it for this week. 2 books read, 1 book I'm currently reading, and then a little mini library haul. I did also get approved on NetGalley for Save the Date by Allison Raskin. I've followed Allison on YouTube along with her business partner Gabe Dunn for several years through the Just Between Us YouTube channel, and I've read all of Allison's books. She actually just came out with a brand new one called I Do, I Think, which is a nonfiction book about marriage. I will be reading that once my library processes the book. I can't currently put a hold on it, but I will as soon as I can. But this one, Save the Date, is a fictional rom-com that's loosely based on her life. She got dumped by her fiance about 6 months before their wedding, and she wrote a fiction story based on that event. So I'm excited to get to that at some point soon as well. That's it for today, though. I hope you all have a great weekend. I will see you next week.